All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Planning Board on this day, May 10th, at 7:02 p.m. If we could, May 10th, if we could all stand and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We have had a request from one of our presenters this evening, Carver LLC, to be moved to the front position, and that is up to the board, so I am open if anybody would care to make a motion. Seeing no motion, I'm afraid it was denied. Sorry, gentlemen. Our first order of business this evening is a public hearing on the application of DK Properties. Public hearing notice. In accordance with the provisions of the Town of Carver zoning bylaw, the Carver Planning Board will hold a public hearing on May 10th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the Carver Town Hall Meeting Room Number 1. On the application of DK Properties requesting a special permit and site plan review pursuant to Section 2230, 3100, 3241, 4341, and 5300 of the Carver zoning bylaw. Located at 94th Street in Carver, Assessor's Map 49, Lot 61, in the General Business Zoning District, the applicant proposes to construct a 6,500 square foot craftsman tradesman building with associated parking and utilities. The applicant is requesting a special permit to render more than 10,000 square feet of the site impervious. The total proposed impervious area is approximately 18,450 square feet. Any persons interested and wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. A copy of the plan is on file at the Planning Department and may be reviewed during normal business hours. DK Properties?
Yes, good evening. For the record, my name is Eric Dias. I'm a registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering Solutions.
I'm going to have to ask you to, if you can't hear yourself in the overhead, then you're not close enough.
Is that better? Oh, there we
Much
go.
better. There you go.
Let me do
Thank
that
you.
again then. For the record, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering Solutions, here tonight on behalf of DK Properties. With me tonight is Mr. Dan DeCesare. I got it right. I'm very proud of myself. On behalf of DK Properties. So we're before you for site plan review at 90 Forest Street. This is a property that is currently owned by the town of Carver, and my client has an agreement to purchase subject to receiving his approvals for what we've proposed before you tonight. I'm just going to kind of blow through these plans a little bit. The lot itself is about an acre, maybe a little bit bigger in size, with frontage on Forest Street. It's got 150 feet of frontage, and there is a variance on file that allows that in a 200-foot of frontage zone. The site is very wooded. We have very great sandy soils on site with a good depth to groundwater, so this site lends itself very well to stormwater recharge and things like that. What we're proposing is a tradesman craftsman building on the site. The building itself is about 6,500 square feet. We have one entrance into the site, and we have paved access to three sides of the building for fire in emergency vehicle access. The 3 bays, 1, 2, 3, will have bay doors facing the main parking lot on this side. This bay, which is proposed to house the applicant's business, has 2 bays on this side. Our parking count is driven by the number of employees, or maybe I should say that the other way, the number of employees we're anticipating is driven by our parking count. We are proposing to have 14 spaces on the site, which by your zoning bylaws allows us to have 28 employees in the building. There is a landscape buffer to a residential zone that is located back here. We are respecting that landscape buffer. We are staying outside of the landscape buffer, so everything inside of it will remain naturally wooded. We're not proposing an additional screening because it's about 50 feet wide. We feel that that's adequate in this location. We have proposed some screening in the way of a row of arborvitaes along the front of the building here, just to give it a little bit of a softening touch from Forest Street. As we roll through the plans, this is our grading, drainage, and utility plan. What you're going to see is that we have proposed everything from the paved areas of the site is naturally running down this way. So we've got a proposed storm scepter catch basin here that will capture and treat the storm water, and that will discharge to an infiltration basin located in the front of the site here that is screened by this arborvitae screen that you see. We have a small trench drain that will catch that little portion of the driveway that you see right here that doesn't make its way into this catch basin. That goes into an underground recharge facility. All of the rooftop runoff is proposed to go into a recharge facility to the rear of the building. And then off the pavement, we have this small stormwater depression. And what this is designed to do is to just capture the runoff that naturally comes down this way through what will be a wooded or lawned area, capture that and get it back into the ground. So we've got nearly 100% recharge throughout this entire site, which is great for stormwater management. We meet the stormwater management standards, no problem. We are proposing a septic system on the site that is located here. We did get our approval from the Board of Health for that septic system. In fact, we were just given the physical approval document today. So we have that. We have presented a full erosion and sedimentation control plan for controls during construction to keep Forest Street clean and to keep stuff from flowing onto abutting properties. And we have a full lighting plan. What we're proposing for lighting is wall packs on the building itself. We're not proposing any pole lights. All of the lights that we're proposing are LED. They're dark sky compliant, they're downward facing, and we have zero spillover at the property lines. We are requesting one special permit, and I'm going to go back to the first page. We are requesting a special permit for use that will render more than 10,000 square feet of the lot impervious. I believe our impervious number is 18,000 and change. I want to say it's 18,450, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. And we are requesting two waivers. One waiver is to waive the requirement to provide interior landscaping to the parking lot, whereas this is akin to a contractor bay. Those things just prevent proposed hazards for snow plowing. Small trucks run them over. It becomes kind of a maintenance nightmare. And then the other waiver that we've requested is that there is a requirement to provide estimated daily and peak hour vehicle trips to be generated by the facility. What we anticipate is a very low flow of traffic from this facility. We're going to have two tradesman bays here. These people will probably have 2 or 3 vehicles apiece. You'll come in the morning, you'll pick up your equipment, you'll get out of town before anybody else is up and over to work. So we thought it was a reasonable request in this case. Really, those are the finer points of the presentation. I'm glad to take any questions or anything else.
You were saying that there's already a previous variance in regards to the site?
There is a variance that's been approved by the town for the frontage. This zone requires 200 feet of frontage, and this lot has 150.
And in regards to lot size, Mr. Bott?
Do we have a copy of that waiver?
The lot size is 40,000 square feet in the general business district?
I don't work from memory.
No.
Uh, we-
That's not a question that we have to answer at this very second.
Yes.
Frontage.
We have it at 40,000 square feet required, and we're clocking in at 40,791.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
looking at, C3 has the square footage of the lot on it.
I noticed you were listing it as for industrial use?
We have it specifically called out on the plans, and this is something that we actually worked with the office with quite a bit as, let me get the exact nomenclature so I don't misspeak. Proposed craftsman trade building,
Okay.
yes, which is allowed by right in this location.
I also see that no toxic or hazardous materials during or after construction on site.
We don't anticipate anything, no. Just by way of relation, Dan is an electrician by trade, so that back unit, we anticipate, you know, he will house his craft in there, and we'll have similar, maybe a plumber or something else in the front units, something similar to that.
And you can, because I really can't see it on here, the side setbacks and screening.
Yep, we do have side setbacks. If I can zoom in. We have a 25-foot side setback on the sign, on the side of the building, which we make. 25-foot side setback on this side as well. The building complies. We're leaving as much vegetation along the side yard as we possibly can. Although in this location up here, just for grading purposes, we do end up cutting to the property line.
And you think you can screen this from the public way appropriately?
I believe we can. We are proposing the green giant arborvitae spaced 6 feet on center along the frontage. Those things grow quickly. They grow probably 2 feet a year, and they get very tall, and they get very dense. So I think we can screen it pretty well.
So,
do you-
how much grading are you talking about, taking off the top of it?
Let me go to that sheet. So the site right now is pretty flat. I haven't done an analysis of cuts and fills on the site, but if you look at this sheet, what you'll see is, you know, we're coming up at this location into the site to elevate rather steeply, but then it gets very flat from there. The reason for that is to give us the separation to groundwater that we need for our septic system and things like that to pick this thing up. So with the exception of that, there's not a lot of cut and fill going on this site.
And, with regards to the water table, you were talking about, it was something about the water table. How deep is that?
Yes, let me check. So the test pits were actually done by somebody else when this was under the control of the previous owner. But if you look on the plan here, these are the test pit logs that we got. We are down to depths of 120 inches, which is 10 feet on all the test pits with no groundwater reported. And we do have very sandy, medium coarse sands through all the sea horizon, which will have a great acceptance rate to it. And our perk rates were all less than 2 minutes an inch, which requires us to have a 5-foot separation to the groundwater table between our septic system, which, as I mentioned, we did get approved already.
Do we have a truck turning plan in regards to this?
We did not prepare a truck turning plan specifically. That's something that we can certainly do if we need to. We did coordinate with the fire department early on, and we did provide paved access to all 3 sides of the building so they can get in there. We're not anticipating anything for trucks the way of an 18-wheeler or something like that, more of a box truck. And we feel that we have adequate passage for those things. We have aisle widths of 30 feet in the back to be able to back out of the garage bays. In these 3 units, we have a 30-foot aisle width, and then I think we neck down at our closest point to 22 feet of an aisle width just to get by.
And looking at the proposed building, I'm not entirely certain, but I'm sure we'll get a report from our engineer in regards to bump outs and percentage of window coverage.
Yes, in fact, we do have an architectural rendering that I can bring up if we'd like to. Let me see if I can make that work here. I can. So this is the architectural rendering of the building. This is the front facing the parking area with a garage door and a man door for each of the units. High windows up here. I don't pretend to be an architect. We haven't done an analysis on the percent openness of the windows, but I believe this meets the Mass State Code. This is the rear elevation of the building with a window for each and a man door for each unit. This is the view that would face the northern parking area, where we have 2 garage doors and a man door on the final unit, and then facing the detention basin. This would be the view facing Forest Street, just 2 windows up high.
Technically, the front of the building.
I guess you would technically call that the front. Maybe not
Okay.
functionally, but technically.
All right. There are some requirements in regards to bump outs, length of the building, and percentage of windows, but I expect you'll be hearing from our engineer in regards to quantifying that from us.
Certainly something that we can do.
All right.
The lighting plan you've got,
Yes.
how high up are the lights gonna be?
Stand by.
One of the things really to pay attention to is the light, really facing, it's gonna be facing to the rear, to the rear of the lot, so that, it's not, minimal disturbance to the neighbors that are back there.
Absolutely. If you look, and it's a little hard to see, but by the time we get to the tree line that we have proposed, we're back essentially to a 0-foot candle. All the lights are facing downward, so nothing will be like a spotlight that's facing back there.
Okay.
So I don't think you'll see any of the light through the trees. You certainly won't get any overshadowing. Unfortunately, I believe we designed this with a mounting height of 15 feet, but I don't have that noted on the plan, so I can certainly look into that and get back to you
Yeah,
if need be.
okay.
Mr. Chair, through you.
Please.
The proposed area that you're going to cut back to the tree line, do you have that dimension?
Let me find out. So you're talking this area through here?
Yes.
I don't have that dimension, but as I'm looking at this, I've got 30 feet here. I've got another 20-foot, let's say, aisle, and then probably another 15 feet past that. So we're looking about 65 feet off the building, roughly.
And the remainder of that's going to stay wooded?
Going to stay wooded. And I believe that's a 50-foot landscape buffer off the back property line where it abuts a residential use. So there'll be 50 feet of fully matured trees that will remain there.
Okay, and while I have you, dumpster location and your snow removal plan.
So dumpster is right here in this location at the end of the driveway. We designed it like that so you could pull right in, unload, back up, 3-point turn it, and come right back out. Snow removal is likely going to be in this area back here at the end of the driveway and the end of the parking area, and on the sides over here. We don't want to be storing snow in the proposed infiltration basin.
Okay.
And then obviously, as with any of these things, once we reach snow storage capacity, it's got to get out of town.
A couple things I think I would be interested in seeing is berming around the trash, as well as appropriate screening for it, and a vermin control plan in regards to this.
So,
Um,
could you just repeat that? I'm having a little hard time hearing.
Oh,
the
sure.
fan.
Yep. Sorry. A couple of the things that I would like to see are berming around the trash disposal areas, as well as appropriate screening and a vermin control plan.
a what control?
Vermin?
Vermin control.
Yes.
Okay.
Any concerns?
Yes, we do, just so you're aware, we are proposing to screen the trash enclosure with a fence. We can certainly add a berm to the detail for that, that's no problem. And we can look at a vermin control plan, that's not an issue.
That'd be great. Yeah, because food, I mean, you guys might not have a lot of it, but you're gonna have trash out there, and it tends to be, with the 50 feet wooded area and residences bordering on the back, we don't want it to be concerned. That's our,
Understood.
Do you have any idea of what businesses might be interested in this?
We don't yet. I do know in that fourth bay, the larger bay, is going to be an electrician. The other bays, you know, certainly something similar. Whatever it is, it will be allowed by right in the town. If it's not, we'll obviously have to seek relief from the ZBA.
So the amount of bathrooms that we'll be having?
One bathroom per unit.
as this is a public hearing, do we have any concerns or questions from the public? Please, step up to the mic and introduce yourself, sir.
Hi, my name is Ray Cleary. I own the property next to it. And he's talking about all the trees going between, you know, the residence and the building. What about between me and the building? And also, since he wants to put more pavement down, it appears, how does that affect the well water in that area? Because I have a well right next door. That's
Now,
And one other question, if he does, this gets approved, when is going to be the initial start?
if it is approved as a special permit, he will have a year to make substantial, begin substantial work on it, but we can address both of your other issues.
If I may, through the chair, sir, you said that you're in a butter. Which side of the lot are you on? You're on the left-hand side. So we can look at some supplemental screening on that side if we need to. I don't think that that's a big deal. And then just to respond to the question of the well water, the stormwater plan is designed to infiltrate water back into the ground, just about all the water that falls on the site. So we don't anticipate it'll have any negative impact on the ability of the well to function or anything like that.
All right. Do we know the aquifer flow direction in that area in regards to the gentleman's well?
I do not, but it's certainly something that we can look into.
All right. There are side screening requirements in regards to this also. Again, I'm sure our engineer will bring those up in regards. If it's not too much trouble, and you have a general idea, could you point out where your well is on your property?
Away from that property.
But it's in the property directly bordering on.
On the
On the left-hand
left-hand side.
Okay. All right.
I'm kind of probably above it. So
Right, but
Are you on?
it might not affect it. I just,
sure, but you have
Are
every-
you on Lillian Way?
what's that?
Yeah. Are you on Lillian Way?
No, Fuller Street,
Oh, Fuller Street. Okay.
1A Fuller.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Just informationally, the natural contour of the land starts at this corner here and flows in this direction.
Okay, yeah.
I am assuming that the groundwater contour does basically the same thing here. So I think we are likely flowing away from the gentleman's well, but it's something that we will take a look at.
Well, yeah, I'm sure the health department will look at it also,
Yeah.
as well as our engineer. All right. Any more questions from the board or the public? No? Mr. Bart?
If I
Oh,
may,
please. Come up and introduce yourself, Ms. Layden.
Joanna Layton, I'm at 4 Wenham Shores. My question to the board is this, we have a P&S, and we are going to sell that property to Dan. The P&S states very clearly that by June 16th, all the permit and approvals must be had. And on the variance that we have from the zoning board on the frontage of the property ends on June 30th. And we would be closing on June 30th as well. So I just wanted to make that aware.
So, in regards to this specific property,
That's correct.
The
We are
purchase-
selling that property.
Yep.
And we will be given back to the town well over 100,000. 37,000 will be paying the back taxes as well. That was owed at the time of the taking. The 175,000, we have administration costs as well and legal costs. So I'm estimating around between the back taxes and $115,000, so let's add that together. So it's what, 100, 145, give or take, I don't really know, that we are physically going to give back to the town. The property is going to cost D&D, Dan, 175,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much, no, for the clarification. June 16th, so, I think that gives us plenty of leeway, Mr. Bott.
Yeah, if I may. So, Mr. Chairman, this plan has been sent to our consulting engineer, to Fuss and O'Neill, and we expect a report back from them, which we'll share with the applicant. Make the modifications to the plan and answer the questions the board had. To your first question, yes, 40,000 square feet is the minimum lot size for the general business district, and they're showing a bit more than that. I understand the concerns of everybody who's got a closing and wants to make it. So we always try to make those, but we always make sure that when you're closing, that you're going to be a good neighbor because we handled all the issues to get you to that point. Even though we've got a client who's ready to go and an RDA who's ready to sell, we still have to dot our I's and cross our T's and make sure everything's fine with that. So we will have that with Andy. I talked to Andy about scheduling things because we've got a lot on our plate, as you know. We've had a couple of big busy meetings. So we're going to have this queued up for our next meeting. Now, typically the board wants to do a site visit, and we want to do a site visit for this as well. So the question I've got for you guys is, can you get the driveway entrance and the corners of the building staked for us, and when?
Certainly. I would like, certainly before your next meeting. I can probably have them staked by the middle of next week at the latest, I would think. But if it makes sense to the board and to you, sir, let me coordinate my survey schedule, and I will send you an email, and we can kind of go
That's
from
great.
there.
So we won't set that date tonight, but we anticipate that by the end of next week.
I would think that would be very reasonable.
I think we could set a tentative date then?
Sure.
Okay.
Or do we want to do our regular Friday date?
I think so,
Okay.
yes, that if that works for the rest of the board, that would be fine with me. And that would be the 20th?
Correct.
So we're going to say site walk next Friday the 20th.
Friday the 20th,
Friday the 20th, what time?
I will not be available.
noon.
Noon.
Yeah.
I'll make sure it's staked by then.
Okay.
That will be done.
Yeah. You'll let me know.
Yep.
I'll let them know.
Sure.
And we'll all come out.
Now, Mr. Gatsky will be unable to attend that particular
Correct.
time. Can we arrange a
I can
time?
arrange, if we could arrange for the following Monday.
Fine by me. Does that
Just
still
for-
gets this in before the next time that we meet?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Unless-
yeah.
If it
So
would
we-
please
if
the
you
board,
see
we
these
could,
guys on Friday, if I could swing by on Monday.
if it pleases the board, we could change the site walk to that date.
We could do, I can do Monday if we want to do Monday.
I prefer the Monday as well.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
then that works for all of us, I think.
Monday, the
Perfect.
23rd, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Do we still want to say noon, or do we want to do
Noontime.
noontime?
Yeah,
Okay.
Definitely no. I don't know, the rest of the board, noontime good?
Monday the 23rd.
Yeah, I can make
It
it
is.
work.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so we're talking May 23rd now?
Yeah, which is a Monday,
May 23rd. Site visit,
yeah, at 12 noon.
noon.
Is anyone bringing coffee?
Uh,
Well, it's lunchtime,
I think that, yeah, you're right.
I don't bring it, but I drink a lot of it.
Noted.
Mr. Bott, will we be looking at continuing this to the 24th then?
Yes, that'd be, I think that is the most, I think that, it's not a particularly complex site or particularly complex project. So I'm fairly comfortable that with Andy working on this now, he can get something back to these guys and they'd be responsive to it for a continuation to the 24th.
Excellent, then the chair will accept the motion to continue the public hearing for DK Properties on 94th Street to May 24th at 7 PM.
A second.
Motion made by Kevin Robinson and seconded by Mrs. Sardillo. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor, Mr. Dion?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Gatsky, Mr. Shea says aye,
Aye.
Ellen Sedillo says
and it is unanimous. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it.
Next on our agenda is an application, public hearing for AD Makepeace Company. Public hearing notice in accordance with the provisions of the Town of Carver zoning bylaw. The Carver Planning Board will hold a public hearing on May 10th, 2022 at 7 PM in the Carver Town Hall Meeting Room Number 1 on the application of AD Makepeace Company, Beals and Thomas, requesting a definitive subdivision approval pursuant to the Carver Subdivision Control Bylaw for property located on, quote, off Wareham Street, on Assessor's Map 134, lots 4-1, 4-2B, and 4-3 in Carver, Mass., in a residential agricultural district. The applicant wishes to construct a 370 linear foot roadway and cul-de-sac to support a 2-lot conventional subdivision. Any persons interested and wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. A copy of the plan is on file at the town clerk's office and may be reviewed during normal business hours.
Hi there. Can you guys hear me okay?
Good.
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Nice to see you in the seat there. I haven't been here since the board has changed composition. Attorney Rob D'Ambroso here for AD Makepeace. Thanks, everyone. So, as you read in the notice, this is a definitive subdivision plan that's before you tonight. It's a 2-lot subdivision on approximately 383 acres on the Wareham-Carver town line. I trust you've all had a chance to review the plans. We can give you whatever visual aid you'd like to see up on the screen. Again, we're in the RA zoning district. We believe we've got a submission that complies with all of your subdivision regulations and the zoning bylaw. We've requested really virtually no waivers. And 370-foot road, 2 lots. Again, I'm happy to give you whatever kind of detail you like. My understanding is that you may be waiting for comments from your peer review engineer consultant. As such, my supposition is that you'd want to hear from them before you vote, but certainly that's within your discretion. So, again, I am happy to field any questions, walk you through this in more detail. I've got Sarah Stearns of Beal and Thomas, the civil engineer, with me. She can provide whatever level of detail you like, but I don't want to be on my soapbox too long unless you would like me to be.
Could you give us a little narrative on what you have planned there?
Well, right now it's just a residential subdivision with 2 lots and a roadway. So at this time, you know, it would be set up for residential development on 2 lots. We don't have firm plans in terms of, you know, anything we'd be ready to submit for building permit purposes, but right now all we have is a request to create the 2 lots.
Now, I see on one of the plans, there was a secondary roadway. Was that one that we previously moved through a modification last September, maybe?
Secondary roadway, so it's here. Which plan are you work? Yeah, which sheet, Mr. Shea?
Are you referring to the easement?
No. It is on PL3.
everything
So,
pulled up.
PL is the property line plan,
Yep.
it's existing conditions.
So which roadway are we, I see Hammond Street, of course, that's bounds it, Federal Road, which, there's a gas line easement, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble identifying this secondary roadway.
The former subdivision you're talking about?
That was the one that,
So if you look on the screen, is that what I'm?
yes, correct.
Yes, that was a former subdivision, that was done many years ago. It's just shown on the existing conditions plan.
Okay, and this is what was proposed
The proposed is just to the south.
back in September, or?
No, this subdivision is many years old.
Yeah, there was a plan filed, I think in 2003, which lapsed and is void, but that's what Sarah's referring to.
And what's just to the south of that, a slightly different shaped cul-de-sac is what's proposed as part of this presentation. And I will just mention that what we're proposing is aligned better with an existing access point, which is why it's slightly askew from what was done many years ago.
And, I believe you said you had a approved ANRAD through Wareham?
This site is entirely in Carver, so we do have an ORAD for this property that was issued by the Carver Conservation
You have one that
Commission.
was issued by?
We do have
okay.
one, yes.
And, now, because there's some confusion here when I'm looking at the locus map. There's a lot of red lines in here, but basically you're separating it into two residential subdivision lots.
Yeah, that's right, 2 lots.
Could you, maybe show us where the proposed septic or underground utilities or various other things, or the, houses, driveways, anything in that regards?
So this proposal is just for the roadway and the creation of the 2 lots. If and when homes were to be built with the associated utilities, that would be presented as a separate filing when that time came. We did do some preliminary explorations we did witness test pits to just ensure that the soils were appropriate for wastewater disposal if and when that time came, and those were part of the application package that was issued to both the health department and Fuss and O'Neill.
Yeah, and I would add to that if you look at, I think it's sheet C5, C5-1, the layout plan, it does show the utilities that would run underneath the roadway, so underground electric and water.
Right, but it is a proposed residential subdivision, you should have a vague idea of where the proposed septic systems for residential properties might go? Even just proposed or off the top of your head, they should be on here somewhere.
We've got an awful lot of land to work with. We got 380 acres, so. We
Right,
don't-
because we'd like to narrow it down on the board to know what we're dealing with, really.
Right,
Right, so we'd certainly make a filing with the Board of Health and follow the protocol when and if we're ready to move toward development.
And Mr. Chair, we're happy to coordinate with Fuss and O'Neill on the technical piece of that as well. I'm not sure if the planner has received any word from Fuss and O'Neill on this. Tom?
We have not.
Okay. So, again, we're happy to go through that technical piece of it. On the board, I just have the utility plan up here, which really focuses on the subdivision itself, the roadway.
Right, but as you're proposing a residential subdivision, there are certain things that would be expected in a residential subdivision, and I would think proposed septic systems, utilities, water supplies.
Right, so respectfully, your subdivision regs don't call for that level of detail. I mean, if you want to point us to a reg that you have in mind, we're happy to address it, but
Sure, 6.3.4, section B maybe, or 6.3.3, no, 6.3.4 B is what I have here. And then, of course, we would need the fire department approval for the new roadway, and
Yeah, so if you look at page 2-4 of our application, we just go section by section of the subdivision rules and regs and just talk about what is presented for each of those. As far as 634.1 and 2, that's for observation pits and stormwater management system, that's associated with the roadway itself. So that's what the stormwater report that was issued as part of our application covers. So that was a full engineered report. That's what Fuss and O'Neill will be looking at, and that's what this plan shows in terms of the engineering components of the roadway. So if and when a house or two homes would be built, that presentation or that proposal would be put together with the individual utilities, a septic system, a potable water supply for each home. That would be a separate application. This is just, the purpose of this application is just to fully engineer a subdivision roadway and divide the land such that if someone wanted to purchase one of these lots and build a home, they could do that, but that would be the next step. This just divides the land into two pieces, showing a compliant roadway that achieves that.
And you have a proposed homeowners agreement in regards to the property, or?
Well, these would be single-family house lots.
I can't.
I know, there's like a hurricane behind me. These would be single-family house lots.
Okay.
I also
But it would be a shared road belonging to the subdivision, and there should be some delineation of the requirements in regards to that.
Well, this would become a roadway. This would be, we proposed the name Harwich Road, just as there's a Harwich Pond nearby, so we thought that had a nice ring to it. So that would become a road. Whether it's publicly or privately maintained would be decided, again, in another discussion.
Same issues.
I also just wanted to mention, because I'm not sure if Rob did, we did speak preliminarily with the fire department as well. We gave them draft versions of these plans for review and comment. I don't have a written comment letter back yet from them, but there were no concerns. It was just the usual, thank you, access and hydrant availability.
It seems adequate. Site walk?
So,
Or, I'm sorry.
sorry,
No, my
Mr.
fault.
Chair, Mr. Dion's got a good question, point to.
So I have a question for you. I'm a little confused about it, is PL1 is the original, that nothing being done, you want to change that, right?
That's the existing conditions, yes.
So what I'm looking at is lot 1, is that, it says building setback, is that another lot off of 1? And is that Hammond Street, a road that goes through all that?
Yes, Hammond Street is a public way. The building setback is shown on that plan as there is a solar array off of Hammond Street that is constructed. So that's what that building setback is. That's a separate lot. That's a completely different entity. But Hammond Street is a public way.
Hammond Street is a public way.
Yep.
All right. Which is off of Federal Road?
Correct. It connects between Federal Road and Wareham Street. And this lot is between those two streets as well.
All right. Because it almost looked like you were gonna make a lot inaccessible.
No,
That's why I was asking about.
yeah, I think, am I pointing to the right thing you're talking about?
If you could.
Look on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, so that's a solar field right now.
Yeah, so I was, Carver Street, does that go like that?
No, that's just a property line.
So that
This is a this is a
property line,
gas.
but the access is right there for the gas.
Yep, that's the gas easement.
That's all I was looking at.
Yep, the solar array is on its own, separate lot.
So, if you're gonna make these buildable lots, wouldn't you have to put, setbacks up?
Well, we're creating frontage with the proposed subdivision.
Yeah, do frontage.
Yeah, that's the purpose of the application, is to create that frontage off of Wareham Street, the cul-de-sac. That would give these lots their frontage.
Right, that was my question. I didn't know if you were
Yep.
gonna make a piece of land inaccessible.
Right, it was a good question. It's hard to tell on this point.
Well, that's right, because I'm looking at one and then you moved it.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, understood.
I'm all good. You?
What do we have for wetland delineations?
There is an ORAD issued by the Conservation Commission in early April.
Do we have a copy of that?
We didn't have it at the time of filing, but I'm happy to provide it. I have it now.
Okay. Yes.
I think the board would like to set up a site walk on this property. It's in South Carver. I'd like to tie it in with a different one. When do you think you could have everything staked out in regards to this?
The roadway?
The roadway, any wetlands in regards to that, any other issues that we might need to be aware of as
Well-
far as?
The wetland line has been approved by the Conservation Commission. I'm not sure if there are still flags out there delineating it, but that has been taken care of by that commission, and a permit or an approval has been issued. Are you wanting to look at the wetland line and review the
Well,
wetland line?
Right, we'd like to, in regards to, you're asking for residential subdivision, and that's something that we should be taking into consideration in regards to that.
Well, the only thing that really is proposed as part of this is the actual cul-de-sac, which we can certainly stake out. There's an existing gravel road, which is where this would be. But we could stake, the curve of the proposed road, if that's helpful for the board to see. The site is relatively inaccessible beyond that, but we can poke around as much as you'd like to.
Right, and our engineers?
Steady at work with the stack of goodies. So in the case of this subdivision, if we're talking about, and I heard you mention a site visit, this is not near Forest Street. So we're likely not gonna, not without a police helicopter escort are we gonna get there in any sort of short order.
Right.
So we may have to pick a separate day for that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
As far as staking the center line and the outside curvature, perhaps of the cul-de-sac, time frame for something like that for you guys?
We can have it done at your convenience.
So we should set it up, we have a couple others coming up in South Carver too that might
Yep.
require site walks.
So do I understand, John, you had an issue with the 20th?
Correct, I'll be out of town.
Okay, so that's not, I was thinking, try to pile up a couple of them.
As it is a public hearing, do we have any questions or comments from the public?
Mr. Chair, if I may
Please.
ask, I know oftentimes in the past, we would do technical review committee sessions on projects like this. Is the board doing that these days, or are we just, should we request a comment letter from fire or?
Well, the planner is, he's,
You are.
He's sort of new
He is.
getting better.
I realize
No,
that.
well, I guess
I heard he's
I
here to
shouldn't say that.
stay,
That's too
so
much-
that's good.
That's too much
We're
pressure.
all pretty new up
Yeah,
here,
that's-
so we're
that's-
gonna
that's too
rely
much pressure.
heavily on our
Okay.
engineers.
So we have been doing, depending on the level of complexity, technical review committee meetings.
Okay.
Or simply just, checking in with those
Staff
requisite
group.
departments.
I only ask because I will certainly make myself available if needed, or our PE, who did the design on this, we can have any questions answered, as staff needs, or, work with anyone to, follow up with any additional copies or anything like that that may be needed.
All right, you and I will check back on that.
Great.
Yeah, as far as sidewalks and stuff like that, I mean, after 5 o'clock, usually, I know personally, I'm available after 5 o'clock pretty much any time during the week, with the exception of Tuesdays.
There will be, we have a couple coming up in South Carver too. I'd like to tie at least, try and get two together and
Yeah.
do that, so I will. And
Yeah.
have
We got longer days and stuff now, so.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock's kind of tough for me. I'm still working.
All right.
As long as the sun's up, it's, like I said, after 5, as long as the sun's up is good for me. During the day is really tough, because I'm all over the place.
Recommendations, Mr. Bott?
Yes, after 5. So I know Wednesday is not your good night.
Wednesday is not a day for me.
So it's not Wednesday, and it's definitely not before 5. Sort of pick what you've got. These folks are saying they could have it staked up. Did I hear you say by the end of the week? No, you didn't. No.
She said anytime.
We can.
I heard anytime.
We will make every effort to, are we thinking continued for 2 weeks? Are we working with a 2-week timeframe?
Well,
here,
we're gonna talk about that in a minute as well.
Okay.
Because we've got a number of things from our meeting last week, 2 weeks ago, that are coming back on the 24th.
I'll be
And
here.
so if
I'll be here anyway.
yeah, so I think that based on sort of the load that we've got, and you guys don't have a pending closing or anything like that on that,
Yep.
just sort of managing the workflow.
We're flexible, so whatever the board.
So working backward, we're looking at bringing these folks back in June at this point.
Okay.
So our June meeting, so we've got all of May to figure out a date that works for you. If it's Memorial Day, you're going to have very poor participation.
I can assure you,
Yeah.
yeah.
So not a Wednesday, after 5. Kevin, I know you're working while the sun's up because it's time to make hay in your business. So you are.
But I can possibly, I can work with the rest of the planning board. I just might not possibly be able to make it, that's
Right.
all.
So is a 6 p.m. sort of thing work for?
6 is fine.
Sun's still up at 6?
It doesn't go down until about 7:30, so.
Works for me.
I'm leaving it up to the board to decide which everybody seems to be
Yeah, I mean,
6 o'clock, okay with you?
Well, I usually work nights if I work, but I got that coming up in June thing, so it probably won't.
Okay.
And if we need to split it into 2 visits, I'm happy to do that too. I mean, I'm local. I can make it for 2 separate ones if need be, given schedules.
Well, I think what we'd like to do is we've got 104 Tremont, which is also in the neighborhood-ish. Ish.
Yeah.
It gets big down there. You'd
Yeah.
be surprised. The people who drive through Carver and
I know
44 all the
South
time,
Carver. Yeah.
who knew? Well,
Yeah.
there was all this Carver down there. I saw a lot of it today.
This is the edge.
So, I think that after 6 p.m., it seems to me quite conceivable to go to here and to 104 Tremont to knock them both out.
The same night?
Huh?
The same night?
We're typically not lounging a lot.
No, it's fine with me.
And what is the date on that?
Well, we know it's not Wednesday, and we know it's
Oh.
not 5 o'clock.
Oh, I thought you had a date already
No.
for 104.
and not Tuesdays, because that's coaching.
Okay,
So Monday, Thursday, Friday.
So-
I'll say Thursday.
yeah.
Thursday, June 2nd? 6 o'clock?
Don't let me make the decisions.
Um,
Kevin, that good for you?
Thursday, June 2nd, 6 PM?
Second.
Well, when might we get, if we're not getting back on before then, I guess.
When are your,
That one at 6?
Yes, sir.
So what, June 2nd?
June 2nd, 6 PM.
and is your June hearing the 7th?
Give me just a second. Apparently there's a baseball game on, and they're playing the Braves where I went to grad school at, so there's a lot of,
Oh, that's what's
my
happening.
phone's making a lot of racket. I don't know the scores, so no spoilers. So give me a second here. June 14th is when we are going to be back.
Okay.
That is Flag Day. So site visit June 2, 6 PM. At some point, a member of the board will likely make a motion to continue this until June 14th. And we will chat with the folks at Fuss and O'Neill and coordinate with you guys for some modifications or any kind of comments on the plans. Plan
Great.
set.
And I will email you a good meeting place with an address that you can pass along to the board members for the site visit. It's one of those zero number properties, but I will find something nearby to use.
All right.
You want a motion?
The chair will accept the motion to continue the application of AD Makepeace for a definitive subdivision approval off Wareham Street to June 14th, 2022 at 7 PM.
I'll make said motion.
Mr. Dion made the said motion.
Second?
Mr. Gatsky seconded it. Any discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Dion?
Mr. Dion says aye.
Mr. Gatsky?
John Gasky says aye.
Cornelia Shea says aye.
Rob, says aye.
Being unanimous, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Right, the next order of business is a minor modification for St. Carver LLC, 104 Tremont Street, map 123, lot 13, map 124, lot 8-4.
Good evening, everyone. Rob Bukowski with Weston Sampson, representing Sincarfa. So this site plan was approved previously, and a combination of two things is the request here for the minor modification is to move the access road further to the north on Tremont Street. The reason they're doing is, one, Federal Furnace wants to be a good neighbor, and there's an abutter here to the south that uses the same access road. So as we've gotten feedback from Eversource, the pole configuration and everything else wouldn't be an ideal situation for them to see all these poles on the access road that they use. So moving it to the north, it's basically an existing maintenance road that Federal Furnace uses. Will be basically improving it, minimum 12-foot width up to Tremont Street, and the utility poles that Eversource requires through the interconnection agreement that they have Sincarfa will be placed as shown on this plan here. So essentially moving the road from the south up to the north area. It is in the interconnection agreement that Sincarfa has with Eversource that the electric lines be placed on poles. The existing service into the site is overhead on poles. This plan here gives you, I'm sure you have it in front of you, but this is just a little bit bigger view of the proposed improvements.
All right, I expect we're gonna need approval for the fire department and the DPW in regards to this.
You know, I don't know if that's, if for minor mod, I mean, the road is actually, it's gonna be wider, I think, than what the originally approved road was, and it's gonna be improved. So, I mean, if anything, I feel like we're making the situation easier for access.
I would think that the fire department would have to make that judgment. We couldn't make that judgment for them. Now, as I remember, originally when we approved this, they were going to use the existing poles, above ground poles. With this new plan, unless it's prohibited by Eversource, our bylaws call for it to be underground up to the connection. Is that an issue?
These poles that are shown here associated with the minor mod, those are proposed to be above ground per Eversource's interconnection agreement with Sincarfa.
Right, but unless they prohibit underground, our bylaws call for all utility connections to be underground. I believe we were giving leeway when we approved this last time because there were existing telephone poles and an existing utility line in that, along that existing road.
There are some, there were, hang on, I can probably pull up the other plans, but there were, typically when Eversource comes in, they require new poles to be placed. So usually with the exception of the final interconnection location, it's new poles.
Right, and I'm telling you that the Carver bylaw requires all new utility connections to be underground. As they were existing above ground poles, we didn't see that there might be an issue, but with a new interconnection point, that would be something to take into consideration, unless it's prohibited by Eversource, the soil shape or topography of the land.
All right, so two things. Did I hear you say that the interconnection agreement with Eversource required the poles above ground?
That's what the yes, that's what the
I
interconnection
thought you
agreement
said
says.
allowed.
Well, is it because you're putting a new road in?
So the new, if just backing up a second, if you look at the screen here, this was the old road, and all these poles here were newly proposed poles for Eversource, between Eversource and customer poles. So I can certainly get you a copy of the interconnection agreement that Sincarfa has with Eversource.
Right, and this is gonna be a new interconnection, isn't it?
The interconnection that's approved is the new one. So this is what was approved by the planning board. Since that time, Sincarfa's been working with Eversource. I mean, unfortunately, this is the way these projects go sometime, where approval from Eversource through their interconnection is comes after, you know, some of the other approvals have been received. So this, what's shown here on this minor mod, is what Eversource has approved. There may be a little bit of movement, a few feet in either direction here or there, but this configuration is what they've approved.
Right, but, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
They make their determinations on what's available and what you guys are proposing has been approved.
I just know, I mean, I can get you further information. If you'll allow it, I can pull someone in from Sincarfa and put them on speakerphone. You might be able to clear things up a little bit.
Well, more or less, it's like you already had the existing poles, so they went ahead and gave it to you for the existing poles.
But they weren't all existing, like I said.
Right,
these
well,
poles-
we granted some because it was already had existing poles up there. And normally, it all goes underground, and because you were way out in the middle of nowhere, we had no problem granting you the poles. But now you're saying it's interfering with an abutter and you wanna move the poles. That changes everything now.
It's just the access, that's all it's changing. And we're
So-
just moving it a
so,
little
if I
bit
may,
up the road.
Please, Mr. Bob.
So we had a conversation about a couple of things today, including this provision of 350, 26.3 utility connections. And is my reading, and we can certainly talk to the building commissioner because he's the person who interprets the zoning bylaw, is that what that says is that they shall be placed underground unless soil, shape, or topography of the site and any requirements of the utility provider dictate the above-ground installation. So in this case, I don't see an issue with soil, slope, shape. It's all sand. It's pretty easy to work with. But that provision in here, unless the utility says no, they got to be above ground, And so in that interconnection agreement, and this is the maddening thing for people who are trying to do this stuff, is that Eversource or National Grid, whoever the utility happens to be, they've got a lot of these things. They're besieged with them, and so it takes a long time for them to get through them, and they get their pound of flesh. And so you're sort of, as the applicant, as the town, at the mercy of Eversource. You drive around and you see the various utility poles that are chopped in half and tied together and broken, and all the stories you hear from contractors who go, "I built the building, but I can't get the power on because that's just, when you're dealing with a regulated monopoly like utility, there's not a lot you can do with them other than say, can you come get my stuff and help me out here? But, they are who they are. And it's going to take them a while to get to that. And sometimes those things change. But so if the utility says they're above ground, I think that complies with our bylaw that says, they're underground unless the utility company says, no, they got to be above ground on the poles. And that's what I'm seeing here. And that's what I'm understanding through the interconnection agreement. And like I said, there's no reasoning. I shouldn't say things like that. But they are an entity unto themselves, and they're going to do what they're going to do, and they're going to require what they're going to require.
Right.
We're just sort of at their mercy.
Sure, if Eversource requires them above ground, then it shouldn't be a problem. But I see we have a question, and the chair will recognize this gentleman.
Excuse me, Walter Morrison, trustee of Federal Furnace. Just some backdrop to this that may help the board is we had asked Carver to move it, and it was because of, we try to be a good neighbor to our neighbors, and the residents at the front, right to the left of the entrance to Federal Furnace Cranberry, we have essentially a shared driveway. His driveway that comes from his house comes onto our land, which is our driveway. We've never asked him to relocate or anything else, and we wouldn't. And when we realized the poles that were going in and what it looked like, we decided that we should try to relocate that. And where we relocated it to is now opposite one of Edgewood's bogs, so there was no residences opposite it, versus what we had before was residents on the opposite side of Tremont Street, plus our neighbor, who shares our shares our driveway. So we wanted to move it away from them, and we had asked Carver to move it, and they said yes, they would check with the utility and make sure they could do it. So it was our request. And it was to be a better neighbor. And the other part is where they're putting it, just so you know the geology there, that happens to run next to a canal, which is taking water from the other side of Tremont Street from Edgewood Bogs and passes through there and eventually enters the Cranebrook system. So that road is beside there. So asking to bury it, I don't know.
Right, now, has this been...
Asking us to bury, sorry,
Please.
Mr. Chair, asking us to bury it versus driving in a bunch of CCA poles into the ground to where the water's flowing. We're dealing with that problem.
I understand that one.
We have to. This is something, the place that we have to tread very carefully.
Absolutely, and we're aware of that. And the pole setbacks from the canal are there. This is dry. It is dry land. That Federal has tried to observe all the rules that we can, both with the conservation and with here. So.
No, it's a very attractive, I remember the walkthrough, very beautiful land back there.
And as far as Carver, we were complimented by the Conservation Commission in the fact that we had set up a situation where it was a former stump dump, rubble pile, and everything else there. And the total of 12 trees were taken down in order to set up this solar system. So we were virtually not destroying any forest.
So I have a question. Did you even ask NSTAR if you could put it on the ground? Would that be sufficient? Or you just let them dictate what you wanted them to say according to the posts?
I don't deal with Eversource directly myself. I mean, I've done dozens of these solar arrays, and it's almost always overhead.
That's
Well,
all right, Mr.
I
Dion.
would disagree because we did have a solar project here where NSTAR was delighted that it was underground all the way to the main road.
I'm just speaking from my experience.
Yeah, and I understand,
Mr.
I'm
Dion.
speaking from ours too, you know?
Mr. Dion, we'll check the agreement and we'll, as Mr. Bott suggested, and if it's required to be above ground in the agreement, then that's the
That's fine.
requirement.
All right,
But,
sorry, Mr.
right.
Chair.
and last question, has this been gone through Concom at all?
No, this is our first step.
Please, Mr. Bott.
So when we're done with the conscom questions, I just want to talk about the road you asked about earlier in the fire department's review.
Yes.
So I have had a conversation with the fire department about that, and we're looking at that. The requirements for 12-foot wide, to have that space for the fire department to get through, and on an all-weather road, which is what the requirements call. And all-weather road isn't identified anywhere in our bylaw. Apparently, it's in the National Fire Code. So what the composition of that roadway improvement is going to be will be reviewed by the fire department to make sure that we've got adequate access into the site. Oftentimes, when the fire department's going down a woods road, there may be trees over the top, but in this case, the roadway is on the edge of the property. It's in an open area, so there won't be really any issues with overhead tree coverage and things like that. It's fairly open on that side, as I was down there earlier today, just understanding what the site was like. So the fire department will have a role in that. We'll also make sure that going from a gravel road to an all-weather road, that there aren't any stormwater implications as well. The biggest concern that I always have about any solar system setup is you're taking, that water that usually hits the ground on a panel and sending it, in a constrained area. So we're not talking about moving the panels or anything like that, but stormwater is one of those things that's always foremost in my mind to make sure that we're not creating any issues there. So there'll be a review for that. Fire department will be commenting on the roadway, the construction as well, just to make sure we're all on the same page with that. I talked to Jesse about it earlier today. I think we could probably likely have this buttoned up for our meeting in 2 weeks, if that works with the potential site visit for the site. So right now we're talking about a June 2nd site visit for 80 Makepeace. So we'd be looking at likely doubling up and doing this at the same time. So our next meeting is June 10th. No? 24th.
24th.
Never mind. It's
May 24th is.
Yeah. So if we want to get out there for a site visit, because it's relatively modest. We're basically moving a road and we're putting some poles in, and we're making sure that we're not going to impact the bogs. We're not going to impact the woods, and then we got a roadway the fire department can use.
Yep.
And it's going to be much more pleasant for the people who live on Federal Furnace Road and the people who live across the street. So there's a lot of upside to this. There's not a whole lot to stake out because you just basically walk down the road.
Right.
So if we want to go out and take a walk and take a look at it and come back, what's your time frame for moving forward on this?
They'd like to move forward as soon as possible to start construction.
So do we want to try to continue this till the 24th?
Continue to 24th, and this shouldn't be a very long one. I kind of prefer that it, I know Kevin's availability at noontime is pretty available, so we're gonna have to work something out here in regards to that. So
We're gonna do this in 6.
Are we gonna do it?
6:30.
Are we gonna do both time?
Well, if we're meeting back here on the 24th, the site walk
Yeah.
over at the other place is June 2nd.
Yeah,
so-
our site walk in South Carver is June 2nd. So we're either going to take a special trip down there. Like I said, it's pretty easy to find, pretty easy to see, where things are at. And I'd be happy to take you folks out
So
there.
you're comfortable with June 2nd, or we should move it ahead?
I think that if you guys want to do a site visit before you vote on it,
Yes.
and you either have to continue it after June 2nd or get out there prior to. So our
And
goal
I
number
would-
one earlier
right.
tonight was let's get 2 site visits in the same neighborhood to
Right.
maximize everybody's
Right.
time.
So we were shooting for June 2nd, but in this case, I think we're gonna have to go prior to that. And we have one here on the 23rd, but this is a long way from there. I'd still like to do it on the 20th at noon time, but I realize Mr. Gasky has some prior commitments and can't make it.
I'll meet Mr. Gasky and we'll take a drive out there
I appreciate
at his
that.
convenience.
Yeah, we can figure something out.
Okay, that's easy to do.
So Thursday, the 19th at noon time, maybe?
I'll try to make that.
Is there a better day, or?
It's just,
I know, your business is waves.
Well, it's that time to make hay while the sun shines, right?
it's noon time, so I'll try to, work it around lunch.
So,
We're gonna do noon time,
Yeah, this one should
Thursday
be,
the 19th at noon.
if that's good with everybody, it's good with me. This one should be fairly quick. It's not the extensive, the whole site walk that we previously did.
yep, so May 19 noon. All right, and we'll confer on just making sure that we got some stakes out there so we know where things are at.
Yeah, I'll try to get that done, or we can.
All right, we'll talk tomorrow.
Now, how many proposed poles were you planning on putting in?
Let's see.
I want to say 18. I tried to count them.
I'm counting 14.
And how many will be visible from the public way?
Well, the topography drops down a fair amount. Where the first pole's going, it's probably from the edge of pavement, say 7 or 8 feet lower. I mean, obviously the pole extends quite a bit
Okay.
higher. For the top of the pole,
That's all right, we'll get a better idea during the site walk.
It's pretty open the whole way.
Yeah.
Essentially, you're on the side of the woods. You got woods, you got road, you got bog.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
they're in a line, which may help. But it does drop off a fair amount until it levels out.
all right, so May 19 noon site visit. Continue, did I hear?
I am,
Well, actually, we've got the public hearing part, so we haven't asked our public before we get too far down this
Is it a
path.
public hearing?
Well, actually, it's not.
it's not.
And we had talked about that earlier. We do have some comments that I think I forwarded to the board earlier today.
Yes, I would like those entered into the record,
All right,
if that's okay. We
that's
should-
fine with me. So what I've talked about with applicants and folks who come in, and I talked about this probably with you guys at our training thing we did the other night, is that the distinction is at a hearing, the public has a right to speak. At a meeting, the public speaks after being recognized by the chair. So when someone has a question, usually it's not in a hearing, the chair can say, no, we'll hear none of that. But most of the time, chairs are pretty decent individuals, and they go, yeah, you got a question? What's your question? So just making that sort of micro distinction, I'm going to try to be not as annoying as I usually am, but trying to reiterate some of those things we talked about the other night and keep working them into our gig here. So we're moving along. So this is an email we received that I forwarded to the board from Sean Bogart sent Monday, May 9th at 10:20 p.m. Dear Chairman Shea and members of the Planning Board, I am writing to you in advance of the Planning Board's meeting on Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, specifically regarding the following. Minor Modification 3, Sin Carver LLC, 104 Tremont Street, map 123, lot 13, map 124, lots 8-4. It is my belief that this is not a minor modification and should require hearing. The applicant's cover sheet for application for minor modification to site plan did not include selections for the modification of the following. B, existing and proposed structures, including dimensions and elevations. E, location and description of all proposed septic systems, water supplies, stormwater drainage systems, utility refuse, and other waste disposal methods, and snow removal methods. Approval of this minor modification would go against Carver's Bylaw 358.026.3, which states, and this is what we've talked about a couple times before, 358.026.3 is that utility connections, this is all utility connections, from an LGMSPI, a large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installation, shall be placed underground unless soil conditions, shape, or topography of the site, and any requirements of the utility company dictate above-ground installation. Electrical transformers for electrical interconnections may be above ground if required by the utility provider. That is the statement from the bylaw. Mr. Bogart goes on to write, installing the number of requested utility poles and associated equipment should require a variance from this bylaw, and thus my understanding it should require a public hearing. I am sorry I'm unable to attend the meeting tomorrow, but I do look forward to discussing my concerns at the properly posted public hearing regarding changes to the project. Thank you, Sean Bogart, 116 Cranberry Road.
Thank you very much. So the chair will accept a motion to continue to
May 24th?
May 24th at 7 p.m.
So quick question. Mr. Bogart makes a pretty good point with regards to a minor modification. We're looking at shifting the tie-in point a significant distance and using a completely different road, which previously we've looked at as not necessarily a minor modification, and given the that we are at odds with the connection plan with EverSource. This is something I think maybe we need to. I think this needs to be a hearing. I think we do need to hear from directly from other people and from other abutters to see and look a little bit deeper into this.
Yes, please, Tom.
If I may, anticipating that question, I went to look up what constitutes a minor modification. So in the zoning bylaws section 3115, upon request of the applicant, the planning board may waive any of the submittal requirements set forth in section 3100 deemed by the planning board to be not necessary for the review of its application. In addition, the planning board may waive other such requirements of this section 3100, including the requirements for a public hearing, where the planning board determines that the project constitutes a minor site plan. In order to constitute a minor site plan, the proposed work must be limited to construction that does not exceed total gross floor area of 2,000 square feet. B, construction that will not generate the need for more than 10 total number of parking spaces, and or modifications to the site which, in the planning board's determination, do not materially or adversely affect conditions governed by the site plan review standards as set forth in section 3160 below. And there are sections 3161 through 3169 in those performance standards. The things that I looked at in those performance standards, minimizing the volume of cut and fill, including removing trees 6 inches of caliper, 3162, maximizing pedestrian and vehicular safety. 3163, minimizing obstruction of scenic views from publicly accessible locations. 3164, minimize verbal intrusions by controlling the visibility of parking, storage, and other outdoor service areas reviewed from a public way or premises residentially used or zoned. 3165, minimizing glare from headlights through plantings and other screening. 3166, minimizing lighting intrusion through such devices such as cutoff luminaries confining direct sunlight. 3167, minimizing unreasonable departure from the character and scale of buildings in the vicinity as viewed from a public way. That's sort of that discussion we were having about 74th Street. How's that building going to look from the public way? Minimizing contamination of groundwater from on-site wastewater disposal systems, or 3169, complying with additional provisions of the zoning bylaw and other town regulations, including but not limited to Section 3200 general landscaping requirements and Section 3300 townwide parking and loading requirements. Based on those things, that they're not building more than 2,000 square foot of building. They're not creating a use that's going to require more than 10 parking spaces, and substantially shifting the driveway from one location to another does not appear to materially or adversely affect conditions governing by the site plan review standards that I just sort of scanned through below. So one of those things we got to have is a standard to look at. And I think that the bylaw, for all its bubbles and warts, did a reasonably good job for a bylaw at pointing out what would constitute a minor versus a non-minor site plan.
Well, it appears to me that when we're looking at that stuff with regards to a minor modification for a site plan, that you're actually constructing a building. We're not constructing a building, we're laying out solar panels, and we're laying out a very long electrical connection from the solar panels to the to the grid. We've gone through, the town has gone through and saw fit to make sure that everything, that the connections should be buried. And I mean, it's not going through and saying, well, should we have to add a couple of poles in order to make, in order for the electrical connection for Eversource to approve everything. It's more a matter of, was it presented that there are no poles in place at this point, and that this is an entirely new place that we're going to? That's not minor.
I think when you look at the purpose of the site plan was to create all these solar fields in the site.
But it's also to tie into the grid.
Yeah. So 2,000 square foot building, 10 parking spaces, materially adversely affect conditions governed by site plan review standards. It doesn't seem like we get to that threshold.
Right, but we're looking at two completely different facilities.
We're looking at one. We're looking at 104 Tremont as a site plan that's been approved, and a special permit that's been approved, and now they're back for a minor modification to move the driveway and the utility poles that come in there to accommodate the residential neighbors on the street and to accommodate the residential neighbors across the street.
Mr. Gasky, to your point, yes, there will be a lot of equipment in regards to this that is moving from one place to the other. But on May 24th, after our site walk, and we get a little more information that I think we need, then it will go to a vote on whether it is or is not a minor modification in regards to that, if that helps any.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seeing no other public comment.
Anybody else? Those are hired people over there. I see them. Okay.
Right. No, I checked already. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next item on our agenda is other business. Preliminary subdivision plan, Johnson Brothers Cranberries off Fosdick Road. Assessors map 57's lot 1, 2, and 2A, map 59, lot 8.
All right, and if I may, Mr. Chair?
Please.
So we had several of these preliminary subdivision plans on the agenda for our April 24th meeting. As I suspected, because it's a preliminary plan and we don't send out notices to the abutters, nor did we send out notices to the applicant that we were going to talk about this on the 24th. So they didn't know they were on the show. The reason the other folks were there is they're in the building a lot, and they knew they were coming up. So my bad for not letting the applicant know that we're going to talk about that. So that's why we've got these three on for tonight.
Yeah, we won't hold it against them. It happened. All right. If you could identify yourself and tell us a little bit about the project.
Good evening. Mark Flaherty. From Flaherty and Stefani in Plymouth. We're out on Fosdick Road on land that stretches between Fosdick Road and Purchase Street. The opening page that you see on the screen, it just is an oval locus. If I can just go into maybe this aerial photograph, gives the board a little sense what we're doing over through here. On the lower side over here is Fosdick. Across the 164 acres is Purchase Street over in that area. What we're doing tonight is creating a 427 linear foot cul-de-sac. And if I go to the overall plan right through here and zoom out, everyone can see what we're looking at. That's the overall site with as many cranberry bogs. On the lower section over through here is where we would create a cul-de-sac to serve two lots. The lot on the left is lot 1 with 80 acres. The one on the right is lot 2, and that would be 64 acres. And if I go up and zoom in over through here and show you what we're doing for a road system, we're creating this cul-de-sac off of Fosdick Road. Fosdick Road is a 22-foot wide road with yellow stripes. We would follow the subdivision rules and regulations for creating the cul-de-sac. We're showing the location of two houses that would meet the Plymouth zoning requirements for the RA district. The large lots would extend beyond the back of these houses. We met all the setback requirements of the town. 58 feet, you can see through here. 52 feet off the cul-de-sac here. Different setbacks to the proposed house with the septic system on each lot here as well as here. We got private wells taking place. We have a drainage system that would be a 2% grade down to catch basins, to a water quality treatment facility that would go into an overall leaching system underneath the cul-de-sac itself. The subdivision's been laid out following all the aspects of what requires for a preliminary subdivision plan. We're asking one waiver that between now on the preliminary plan and when we come back, hopefully with a definitive plan, we would have the wetlands surrounding this bog all flagged off and receive an ANRAD from the Carver Conservation Commission. So again, we're talking about 144 acres, two lots, 80 acres on the left and 64 acres on the right. The lots meet all aspects of the zoning bylaw, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. Thanks.
So have you applied for an ANRAD in regards to this property?
We're in the process of doing that, Mr. Chairman.
You need a little more time for if we go to do a site walk that we should be able to see the delineation.
Definitely, there's just straightforward cranberry bogs, yes.
So
before we would actually submit for the definitive plan, we would have the ANRAD all approved by the Conservation Commission. with all
In
the,
order to complete the submission for a preliminary plan, it should have been done. If we're gonna go do a site walk and look at everything, we should be able to see where it's all staked off and the wetland
That's
areas
correct,
in
yes.
regards to this.
yes.
So, do you need more time in regards to applying for an ANRAD through the Conservation Commission?
It's important at this time for the board to have that ANRAD in place. And it was our sense within 7 months, we would follow up the preliminary plan with a definitive plan where the wetlands would be locked in place and it would be definite for the planning board to have that in its possession.
Well, in 7 months, things change, and my memory is not gonna be what it once was, and we're gonna probably, almost certainly request that it be staked off at that time also.
Yeah, sure, okay.
So,
So we'd be happy to follow through right now, ask for an extension, get the ANRAD behind us, come back and satisfy that aspect
Please.
of it.
I expect that we will need a written agreement in regards to this from you for an extension?
Sure,
Okay.
no problem.
We have tons of time at this point.
Okay, I just wanna make sure
Yeah.
that we're in that area. Any questions from anybody?
Yeah. Are there any structures on the property in this area right now?
Yes, there's an outbuilding right up in that area that would be raised and taken down at that point. That was just connected with the irrigation, with the cranberry facilities. That would come down. When you, at the time of the site meeting, you will see, we'll stake out the houses, but you'll see where that outbuilding is.
And do we need Board of Health recommendations in regards to this?
Well, the Board of Health will make a recommendation.
On the definitive plan?
Yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
In fact, as we pointed out before, the Board of Health is one of the few people who get their own set of plans for a subdivision. Because the very first thing that happens in Massachusetts is the Board of Health gets a plan and they have 45 days to make comment on it about the suitability of the soils. Oftentimes, boards don't make comments on it. They wait until they're doing perk tests for drainage, perk tests for septic systems. But there are instances where the Board of Health will go out there and go, it's a field of clay, you can't build a thing out here. So the Board of Health is very much engaged in the subdivision control law in Massachusetts.
And it looks like it will meet the fire department regulations, but I would expect that Jesse Boyle would want to take a look at it also.
I don't think he'd forgive me if I didn't include him in any of these conversations.
All right, do we have any more questions?
So, the big line down the middle, right here, that's where you're drawing the,
Yeah, that's where the lot line, the two lots would be subdivided.
so cutting through, right down through the middle of all these bogs.
Yes.
Is it gonna be the same owner in both properties?
Yes, at this time, yes. This, on the larger scale, so the bogs would be subdivided in that sense. Again, we're creating two residential lots, and whether or not the Johnsons decided to, I guess their wish would be to create some residential structures on each lot.
Excellent. Arrange a site walk in regards to this. Pause the floor. Is that your? Mhm. Yeah, thank you very much. We need further information in regards to this. So, motion to continue this to 30 days? Or two?
We're probably going to, it would be okay to have it postponed to a date sometime in the future, once we got conservation and ANRAD squared away. I'm not quite sure their schedule, and we like to think that everything will be squared away in 30 days, but I'm not sure.
So, well, we can continue it, so, I mean, that's
Yeah.
not a problem. So
Okay, good. So let's kind of do a June date
a
and see if
June
we can.
10th maybe?
Yeah.
And then if you're not ready, you're not ready. We just
That's-
need the time to get all the information.
Very
together
good,
and
Chris.
everything.
The
Yeah.
the board is always happy not to see you, Mark. You need a continuance, we'll dial it up. Mark and I have known each other, like lots of engineer types, for,
Maybe 30 years.
yeah, well, maybe 20. We just look older.
You look older.
It's the wear and tear of engineers. June, we have, June 14th Flag Day is our first meeting in June.
June 14th.
Okay, we'll grab that.
All right.
Right, and again, if it's a problem, just let us know.
Yep.
The chair will accept a motion to continue this to June 14th at 7 PM. Motion made by Mr. Robinson, seconded by Ms. Sardillo. Any discussion? Mr. Dion.
Mr. Dion says aye.
John Gasky says aye.
Cornelius Shea says aye.
Kevin Robinson,
It's unanimous. Thank you very much for your time
Thank you.
today.
I got another one.
Sure. Oh,
The next one.
Franklin Marsh?
Yes.
All right. The next item on our agenda
This was all from
is
This was all from the last.
preliminary subdivision plan, Franklin Marsh LLC, off Plymouth Street, Assessors Map 38, Lot 1-0-R, and Map 34, Lot 3-0-R.
Yes, Mark Flaherty again for the owners, Franklin Marsh. We're off of Plymouth Street right now, where we have land that's approximately 87 acres. We're subdividing the 87 acres into two lots, two residential lots, very similar to the previous application, where we're showing houses further back on the properties with septic systems and wells. We have a cul-de-sac off of Plymouth Street that, would you like me to move on from this to this kind of a large-scale map to something that shows the cul-de-sac? Which would be over here.
You could tell us why a cul-de-sac would be important for this property too.
Right, where in order to create two residential lots, we need frontage. The frontage would meet the subdivision rules and regulations and the zoning bylaw. It's we're talking about the approximately the same kind of distance of 427 linear feet. It fits nicely on this land with Plymouth Street. There is, over to the right, there is an existing bog road that runs adjacent to the tailwater recovery pond that goes out into the western bogs. This driveway would be eliminated and would be connected to the new cul-de-sac. We would do that to lessen the amount of traffic coming at this intersection. The subdivision rules and regulations for Carver require on a major street that there would be a 250-foot setback between the intersection here and the intersection of Russell Trufant Road. We're showing the setback distance at 150 feet. That would be a waiver request. We feel that the waiver request might be approved by this board, offering the mitigation that we would eliminate this Cranberry Bog Road that would connect over through a driveway that would lead into the actually cul-de-sac, lessening the amount of congestion that would come off through here. It would be a safer situation with the setback to Russell Trufant Road. So that would be the only waiver that we're asking, as well as getting an ANRAD approved on this project as well, Mr. Chairman and board members.
So same situation as before?
Yes.
Well, yeah, so the ANRAD, again, you know how we feel about having.
Yes.
incomplete
Now
submissions.
I've got my lesson, yes.
So, I just have a couple questions here. Is this lot accessible? Is parcel 1 accessible? It looks like there's a cranberry bog there.
Right, so do you see how the driveway leads up, Mr. Shea? There's a common, whoops. Go away.
Try the escape key.
Let me go back out and reload it. That is Johnson. So, coming off the cul-de-sac, there is a common driveway that really doesn't like when I do that, sorry.
No,
That-
that's okay.
That leads up, so that we're a sufficient distance away from that wetland. The two, that would lead up to, you can see how the common driveway on this plan meanders up to each house through here. That would be allowed under the Carver regulations as long as the driveway meets the 20-foot, it has to be 20-foot wide for the 2-lot common driveway. So there's a pinch point between this wetland and the property line over through here, and that's where the common driveway would go, right through here, Mr. Chairman.
Now, would it be outside the required 65 to 100-foot no-use zone in regards to that bog? And
Yeah, it would be.
because I'm looking at it looks like your building line is 75 feet here. All right, so we'll say it falls out of the 65 foot, but we'll find that out with the ANRAD. Why isn't this part of the subdivision road, considering it goes all the way up to that point before it splits off to two actual driveways?
I'm trying to get my head around that, the essence of that question.
Why isn't it part of the roadway system as opposed to a shared driveway? Why isn't this part of the cul-de-sac system, or why doesn't this road come in from the main road up to that point as a roadway system for the subdivision as opposed to a shared driveway?
Well, for one thing, it would be, in terms of the width of the cul-de-sac, there's also a rule and regulations that the cul-de-sac should be no longer than 600 feet. So that's part of the subdivision rules and regulations. So we're complying with the subdivision regulations, having a cul-de-sac less than 600 feet. A common driveway is allowed through the zoning bylaw and through the subdivision regulations, 20 feet wide. Once the NRAD's squared away, and I'll show this planning board that we can be 65 feet away from the wetlands to the edge of the common driveway.
Yes, but I'm asking, why is there, what purpose does the cul-de-sac serve when you could bring the roadway up to that point as an approved subdivision road and then split to both properties?
Again, I would have to be asking for a waiver. It would be an expensive roadway system to bring the cul-de-sac all the way by that pinch point up to where the houses are. It would be a substantial expense that doesn't seem to be warranted in my mind.
Right, but why wouldn't it be a singular, instead of a cul-de-sac, a singular roadway system up to that point?
Well, in order to create two bona fide lots to meet the zoning bylaw, you have to create the sufficient frontage of at least 150 feet for each lot.
Okay, and if you brought a straight road in up to that point?
I'm not sure what you mean by that point.
To the
Can
point where...
I approach the?
Oh, sure, by that point, I mean where it splits to the house on the right, as a singular road, and then the house on the left as two separate driveways at that point, why wouldn't you just put a straight road into that point rather than put a cul-de-sac in at all? You would still have the subdivision road, and you would still get the required frontage off of it.
Well, it would be certainly economics. I wouldn't want Mr. Shea to pay for a 20-foot wide road with a 4-foot sidewalk for another 800 feet more than he has to. And when a single common driveway would suffice without all the bells and whistles of a subdivision road.
Because even at this point, it needs to have frontage that is accessible to the building site through the frontage, and that doesn't happen with the shared driveway. Because it appears that bog takes up all access to the building site in regards.
So there's plenty of upland between for the driveway to get through there.
Yes, but part of the requirements of frontage is that it has access to the building site.
Yeah, so I'm leading the common driveway off the cul-de-sac, right through here.
Yeah, but then it goes on to a different property. So
Yeah, that's why it's a common driveway with easements as necessary for each homeowner. That's perfectly, I'm talking 40 years of doing this, and that would be a perfectly allowed, provided an easement. And the common driveway is a part of the Carver regulations. And having a width that for a common driveway for two houses is 20 feet wide, and that's what that would be.
I fully understand. I'm just kind of at odds with the fact that the frontage must contain direct access to the building site as part of the bylaws, and that's where I'm trying to.
Yeah, and that's what, and I'm trying to make not a bold argument by saying, but the cul-de-sac does provide access to that common driveway that leads up to the two house sites.
Right, but not, the cul-de-sac doesn't provide direct access through frontage to the building site was
So,
where I was going with this.
Do you want me to I could put two driveways if that would make you feel better.
Well, that's regardless of that, it's in order to create frontage, that frontage must contain direct access to the building site.
And this does. This absolutely does.
Real quick, the bog that's labeled there, is that an upland bog or a lowland bog?
The tailwater recovery pond is here. There's a bog over here. This is a little bit higher, John, than over in this area, but I couldn't say that as an upland bog. I can't stand here right now classifying that as an upland bog.
Okay.
On a site visit, that would be something that maybe that question could be answered.
Well, I mean, wouldn't that come through with the ANRAD from Concom?
We would be able to delineate,
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I think that's where part of the issue is coming in, is that you're having to jump through hoops, so to speak, to make that work. And if that's an upland bog, then what's the there's no problem with having individual driveways. But if it's not in use, I mean, if it's in use, then obviously we can't go plowing through the middle of it. But I don't know.
So just so that I can add a little color to the situation. The zoning bylaw in Carver has a lot shape width that requires that you'd have at the pinch point is a minimum of 75 feet. That's why I've labeled that 75 feet from the corner of the neighbor's lot to our property line. So I need to have 75 feet there. So in order to, the reason why I don't want a driveway on the second lot to the right is because I would be too close to that wetland or to that bog. And so what I felt was that because there is a provision in the Carver rules and regulations for a common driveway, that is what I'm showing.
So if I can paraphrase, I think essentially they're doing that because they can. And that's, as we talked about before, how the regulations are written, they're not written for us. We're just working with them. So us as in the regulators necessarily. The frustration we have about, all the difficulties of trying to get zoning reform done and things that make more sense. But to Mark's point, I think they're using our regulations as they were prepared to put together a plan, and we're just going to make sure that the drainage works, that we're not impeding on somebody else. And the typical standard is there access to the buildable portion of the lot if we were looking at an A&R or creating that sort of frontage. So clearly there's frontage on the bottom side of that cul-de-sac, and I don't know what that width is around the bog, but
Right. It's a very large property.
Yep.
Sorry. You'll need a little time to get the ANRAD, and we would need, again, a written extension in regards to that. Would a continuation date of June 10th again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So
great.
the board will, please,
14th.
Mr. Bott.
14th.
I'm
June
sorry, the 14th, June 14th. The board will accept the motion to continue to June 14th.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Gatsky,
I'll second it.
seconded by Mr. Dion. Mr. Dion?
Mr. Dion says aye.
John Gasky says aye.
Kenny O'Shea says aye.
Kevin Robinson says aye.
Colin Sedillo says aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
The next item on our agenda is preliminary subdivision plan, AD
Thanks, Tom.
Makepeace. Wayne Kinko, 0 and 46 Federal Road, Assessors Map 131, Lot 2-4 and 4-3.
This one, I'm not sure about.
You have PDFs?
Yep, they're on our website.
Oh, I wasn't able to.
That's fine.
We don't have a laptop in the office.
That's fine. We do what we can to help you.
Perfect.
So there's your plan.
Okay,
I got a giant cursor on it just to make it easier to point things.
okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Kinko.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Grady with GAF Engineering.
It all out.
Sorry, Mr. Cleary. Please continue.
Grady, Brian Grady, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, first, my apologies. I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage. Mr. Madden wasn't able to make it this evening, so I'm just trying to fill in for the project, just getting familiar with it this afternoon. So let me tell you what I can tell you. This is a 3-lot subdivision located off of Federal Road, which is located to the west of the site. Well, our property is located to the east of Federal Road, and Cranberry Road is located to the north. You'll see in this locus that this in the center here, this is the Ocean Spray receiving facility. Out in the back is the Reed Soils Blending Facility. And we are proposing a 3-lot subdivision with your typical cul-de-sac layout, approximately 400 feet long, located in this area here. go to the next sheet. This is our overview sheet. Again, proposed cul-de-sac located just to the south of the Ocean Spray receiving facility. We have 3 lots. The total site is 588 acres. The center lot, which is the B lot, contains the Reed blending facility, is a 517 acre lot. This smaller lot located to the north of the cul-de-sac is 15 acre lot. And to the south of the cul-de-sac, lot 4C is a 55 acre lot. We are showing a few isolated wetlands, the only wetlands in the area of the work, the proposed cul-de-sac. They have not been confirmed yet through conservation. We will get that done for you. And if I can just get to the detail sheet with the cul-de-sac on it. Where are we? So again, it's your typical teardrop cul-de-sac, just over 400 feet long. We have a system of 4 catch basins, manholes. Stormwater will go to a sediment forebay with a retention basin to control stormwater in full compliance with stormwater management guidelines. So that's a very quick synopsis of the proposal.
Now, I noticed this is an industrial agricultural area. Could you give us a narrative on what your plans for the subdivision are?
Well, it is industrial. These development would be industrial lots unless we could get the area rezoned or relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So they would be uses in compliance with your industrial zone.
I don't see any proposed septic systems or any utilities or various other items for what might possibly be proposed in this.
Well, we do show underground electric serving the site coming off of this existing pole here. Any structures would be served by on-site wells and on-site sewage disposal systems. Where it's not a residential subdivision, it's a little more difficult to show proposed buildings and proposed septic and proposed well locations. If it was residential, we could pick a standard template for a dwelling and lay something out in fairly short order. But a little more difficult when it's an industrial use. That would be pretty specific site use for a client.
I didn't see any setback lines listed on here. Am I missing them?
We don't show them on this sheet. Let me see if we have them on the other sheet. No, I don't see the setbacks lines indicated on the lotting sheet. That's certainly something we can add. Setback requirements are noted on the cover sheet, however, but we can add those lines.
So, it's a pretty heavily used area.
Yeah, Any questions from the board?
It's very vague.
It's very vague for an industrial subdivision proposal.
Yes, we're in the preliminary plan phase, Form B. We will follow up any comments that you have on this phase, and we will follow it up with a definitive plan, which will have all the detail that you'd be looking for. Yes.
A rough idea of the proposed wells and septic would be helpful, and the setback lines would certainly be helpful, but I understand that, and I thought you mentioned, I could be mistaken, that an ANRAD hasn't been done on this?
Correct.
Okay. Have you applied for one yet?
Not yet, no.
And so you'll need a little time to get that done?
Yes, sir.
All right, so with your written permission, we'll extend the hearing?
Certainly.
And is there any more questions from the board?
At this point.
All right, so I think the chair will accept a motion to continue to June 14th at 7 PM.
I'll make that said motion.
Motion made by Mr. Robinson,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Sardello. Mr. Dion.
Mr. Dion says aye.
John Gasky says aye.
Cornelius Shea says aye.
Kevin Robinson says aye.
Ellen Fedor.
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you very much. So would you just need an email from me
Yes, please.
approving the continuance?
Yep, please.
All right.
Plowing through stuff.
Tom's got his hands full, so next order of business is planning board member notes. Discussion of zoning bylaw committee is one of the things that I put on there. As certain projects have been delegated to review of the planning board from town meeting, the zoning bylaw committee will be reestablishing itself on a regular schedule. We will, of course, be sending invitations out to our prior members, but we would certainly, having lost one and maybe certainly wanting to give everybody a chance to actively participate in formation of the laws that will affect you and your town and your future and your children. We will be accepting applications for that, and we won't, I think our next two meetings are gonna be pretty jammed, but maybe we'll be able to discuss some of the applications we receive.
All right, so this is for the zoning bylaw committee. Now, and you and I always talked about it because I haven't been here. So we want to send out an invitation to the folks who are on the current committee and say, are you willing to continue to serve in your current stead?
Yes, I do believe that a member of the select board, a member of, I'm not entirely certain, the ZBA, and I believe we had a member of the finance committee, but I'm not entirely certain that those were required. I believe the select board and maybe the ZBA were required, but I'll have to check into that.
Yes, I'm due for an archaeology project. It's fascinating stuff in computer files
I know.
all over the place, and it is.
I'm gonna put in the work and
It's a hoot.
and not leave that on your shoulders, Tom. So.
Alrighty.
And Bruce Mackey was one of the representatives for the planning board. The planning board had two representatives on the board. We're really hoping Bruce Mackey continues his valued advice and expertise on the subject. But even should he or should he not, we will be looking for a second member of the planning board to sit in on these meetings. So that's just something to consider. Nobody's going to force that. Mr. Bott?
What was the typical schedule for the zoning bylaw committee? Did they meet in
met
the
at
afternoons,
Mondays
nights?
at 5:30, and that was just what was convenient for the membership. But I would expect that, and it was once a month, I think, because we had a lot of homework to do in the interims. And I think and because of our turnover of town personnel, we had a lot of problems since last November. So reestablishing the committee and getting it working forward again. And the timetable will be, it's not set in stone. It'll be based on what the membership of the body feels is most appropriate.
So once a month, day TBD on the availability.
Originally, we had scheduled it for 5 o'clock on Tuesday nights, the planning board meetings, but it was too much for,
That's a lot to shift from.
yeah, for one night for a town planner, and so we changed it.
I have a circadian rhythm after dark, so I'll be fine, but that's why I don't open the building for anybody in the morning. I told the staff that day one. I'm not the guy who opens the door for you. I will if you're there, but, so we'll send this out to the folks who are on the committee, and ask for their interest in continuing. And note that it'll be once a month, and that target date previously was Monday, but that day the group might meet on will be the consensus of those folks who
At the
are.
consensus of the folks, and
Okay.
it might get a little, it might become twice a month as we get in towards the October, November, because then we're coming up on the deadline to introduce any changes or developments on the bylaws to the planning board and have it reviewed for the town meeting warrant.
With you.
I don't know if we can get Serped help on this or not, but they were exceptional. Helen Zakavage and Bill were really good on helping us get through a very difficult and complex bylaw, the transfer of development rights last year. So even if we can't get them on a regular basis, we would certainly look to getting them for final review on the subjects.
All right.
That's all the chairman has. Anybody else have any planning notes? No?
I'm good.
Mr.
So,
Bott?
so one of the things that I have mentioned, and we've talked about a couple times, and is greatly on Ellen's mind, is our associate member. So we've sent a note to the select board, because it's a joint appointment. And we've asked folks, the ZBA, select board, planning board, to make an announcement at each of their meetings. It's on the website as well, that there are positions available. And so I would love it if we could make that same announcement.
Yes, please, and thank you, because it had slipped my mind, but it has also been bothering me in the back of my head. The planning board is looking for an alternate to sit on the board. We meet every 2 weeks, and there's no qualification for it. But we will be accepting applications for next 21 days?
Yeah, I'd really like to do the best sort of outreach that we can by talking about it at meetings, talking about it on, posting it on the website and as well. And it's a joint application, a joint appointment. And what I had suggested to the interim town administrator was that perhaps the planning board and the select board can have a joint meeting in June, and maybe have a couple of this, and maybe there's a couple other things. It's nice to just see each other on occasion. So look at that window about when in June we could set up a joint meeting for the both of those, interview potential candidates, and take up any other sort of business that might be conducive for the planning board and the select board to talk about.
Yes.
Without
absolutely.
spending all night at it.
The alternate is a very integral part of the board, and at times is a voting member for special permits.
Correct.
And
Special permits in the absence or conflict of a regular member, but only special permits.
if you have any interest in serving your community in a very valued and trusted position, come apply for our alternate on the planning board.
Yeah, the website has a link on it. We actually probably should bring it up. See if I can find it.
carvermass.gov, is that correct?
Carver MA.
Carver MA. carvermass.gov. carverma.gov.
Yes, because carver.gov sends you down to Georgia.
That's right, or Minnesota, that's right.
Something like that,
There's
yeah.
a couple Carvers out there, yeah.
Yeah.
You should be able to find information on the planning board website or the select board website in regards to that.
Okay.
Volunteer and employment information.
Let's try that.
The Recreation Committee also has a vacancy that they need to be filled.
And they're doing a much better job at advertising it than we are, so we will fix that.
Yes.
So we will get on that post haste, but there is an application form, as I understand. So if you got questions, call the planning office and we'll get you set up. And we'll get this going as well. Because like I said, it is one of those things that the associate member has a role, and in the anticipation that we're gonna have a member down for a good cause, for taking care of herself. It'd be great to have that filled at some time.
Get healthy.
We'll sort that out as well. All righty.
All right, next order of business is minutes, and I'm sorry to say I haven't had an appropriate amount of time to review them. I know we're working a deadline. I'll leave it up to the board to decide, but if we decide to approve them, I will be abstaining. Otherwise, we can temporarily approve them till our next meeting. Is that?
There's no,
It's
we're
not-
not, there's
it's
no
a-
gun to our head to get minutes approved and posted or anything
All
like
right.
that.
So I'll leave
And-
it to the board to decide. So,
Well, I'll make a motion to table it till the next meeting.
excellent. Mr. Robinson makes the motion to table it to the next meeting, and Ms.
I'll second.
Sordillo seconds it. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Mr. Dion.
Mr. Dion says aye.
Mr. Gatsky.
John Gasky says aye.
Cornelia Shea says aye.
Evan Robinson says aye.
Ellen Sordillo says
Unanimous. Thank you very much.
And
now-
on behalf of our minute taker, thank you very much for doing our best to speak into the phone and referencing those things. Because if you got somebody who's doing the minutes, you want to do everything you can to support them to make sure they're doing them for us, because none of us really wants to do them.
And now the board will accept a motion for adjournment.
I'll make said motion.
Motion made by Ms. Sordillo,
I'll second it.
seconded by Mr. Dion. Any discussion? Mr. Dion.
Mr. Dion says aye.
John Gasky says aye.
Cornelia Shea says aye.
Kevin Robinson, aye.
Ellen Sordillo says aye.
Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, Area 58, for all the hard work.